For most of her life, Tina didn't like herself very much. Now, she tried to boost her sagging self-esteem by treating herself to new clothes and jewelry, but the high she got never lasted long. Tina rationalized her credit card debt by telling herself that she deserved a little happiness because she was worth it. But Tina didn't feel happy. It might seem rather odd to speak of a relationship with our own self. So many women struggle with this love-hate battle within. So I'd like to share with you what God's Word has to say about loving yourself and what that love looks like. Self-love is a slippery term and is often synonymous with self-admiration and self-indulgence, which God's Word clearly calls sin. Yet the Bible doesn't forbid you from loving yourself. It assumes you already do. But let's see what biblical self-love looks like. First, God never tells us that we should be totally selfless or not have any interests of our own. In fact, the Bible endorses certain types of self-interest. For example, we're told to store up for ourselves treasures in heaven and to delight ourselves in God, because knowing Him leads to our greatest joy and happiness. Loving ourselves motivates us not only to know God, but to seek His wisdom so that we will have a life well lived. He tells us what gives our life meaning, purpose, and passion. And God also warns us that when we don't obey Him, we're going to end up with a wasted life. But if we're honest, we're not quite sure we really believe that God's ways are good for us. Bombarded by the world's messages, we all struggle with whose wisdom we're going to trust. But when we love ourselves, we willingly yield to God's truth, not because we're supposed to or because we're told to, but because we know it's in our best interest to do so. Embracing a biblical self-love also means we correct and discipline ourselves when necessary. Let's face it, our world is a mess. Credit card debt, obesity, sexual promiscuity, pornography, drug abuse, alcoholism are skyrocketing. Not only do we satisfy our fleshly appetites, we also give in to our immature and sinful ways of thinking and feeling and behaving. For example, we sulk in self-pity, throw temper tantrums when we don't get our way, we nurse angry and hateful thoughts, and wallow in our morbid self-analysis. When we feel unhappy or hurt, lonely or unloved, we wrongly believe that we'll feel better if we just indulge ourselves or satisfy ourselves. But that's not true. People are more miserable and don't like themselves more than ever. The consequences of a self-indulgent psyche or lifestyle is not happiness or good self-esteem. It's bondage. God tells us that one of the reasons we hate ourselves is because we've ignored self-discipline. So take a moment this week to examine your relationship with yourself. Experiment with loving yourself as God shows you to. And when you do, watch what a difference it makes in your self-image and self-esteem.